Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to be installing the sinks and faucets on our double vanity. We just finished building the countertop in the last video and the vanity in the video before that. So go check that out if you're interested. I'm going to jump right in and get started on this project. Now before I get started, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you like this. Also, if you have any comments or suggestions, leave that down in the comment section down below. I love to hear from you guys and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Also, if you are enjoying this content and want to see more videos like this, hit that subscribe button down below and you won't miss out on any of my videos I post. Now I have the countertops ready to install, but the sinks I'm using are mounted below the countertop. I want to mount those on before I put the countertop down and before I fasten it down to the cabinet. So I'm marking out where the sink is going, and I need to notch a little bit of the cabinet out. I figured this was going to happen when I built the cabinet, so I left plenty of room that I can notch this out and install the sinks afterward and cut it just the right size. Now that I've notched out for the sinks to fit perfectly, I'm ready to mount those to the countertop. Now I'll flip the countertop upside down as well as the sink upside down on top of this, and you want to make sure that you're facing the sink the right direction. So make sure you know which is the front and which is the back on your countertop before you start mounting this. Now I also put a bead of silicone around the perimeter of the sink to seal that up against the wood. Once I flip this over and have the sink and everything mounted, I'll come back with some more silicone to make sure that gap is completely filled, but this alone should just about do it. Now each sink came with 4 metal brackets to screw them down onto the countertop and hold them in place, so I'm also fastening the sinks to the countertop with a few screws as well as those brackets to hold them down. Now the sinks are ready to flip over and install the countertop, and now at this point I can start fastening the countertop down to the cabinet because I'm not going to have to take this off or anything. Now, like I mentioned before, I'm going to take some more silicone and make sure that gap between the porcelain sink and the wood countertop is completely filled. You do not want any moisture getting up in there and causing issues later on. Now it's time to start installing the faucets, and my wife found a great kit for both of these on Amazon at a really reasonable price too, and it's beautiful. So if you're interested in finding these, I'll leave the link down in the description below and you guys can check that out. Now the first step will be to drill out the holes for the faucets to go through the countertop. And to do this, I've got a Forstner bit the same exact size as the threads that will be going through here. Now this step is really important. If you skip this step or mismeasure, it will throw everything off. Once you drill the hole, it's set. That's exactly where the faucet and the knobs are going. So you want to double check your measurements, make sure everything is right and centered with the sink before you start drilling out the holes. So now that I have the hole drilled out for the faucet, I'm going to drill out for the handles as well. I'm going to mark those out so I know exactly where to drill. And I even double check as I just barely mark it with the drill bit. I want to make sure that I don't cut all the way through and find out that it's off. So I check it several times before I drill all the way through. Now the faucet's really easy to install. On the underside, there's a nut that you tighten down and it holds it onto the wood and tightens everything up. The handles are a little bit more difficult because of the fittings at the bottom. You actually have to take the whole top part apart in order to slide it up through, and then you tighten it down from the top side instead of the bottom. Now I couldn't really find a great way to do this. I'm using water pump pliers. You want to be very careful as you're tightening that down that you don't slip. You'll scratch the metal all up, so I'm holding it very tight and firm on the metal so that it doesn't slide off, because that will cause damage. So just be careful with that and you'll be fine. Now that the faucet's looking great and the knobs, I'm going to move on and install the drain. Now this drain's pretty easy, just like the faucet. It's just got a nut on the underside that you tighten down, and you have a rubber seal on either side, and it seals it and keeps it from leaking. Now quickly just speed this up and go through those same steps for the other sink as well. Alright, so what we have here is the drain coming from the sink. That just unscrews. That's too long right now. It's right up against the shelf. And what I want is the trap to be up here, so I need to have enough space for the trap to curve, come back up, and then it'll go 90 down through the shelf to the pipe over there. Now for the supply lines, they're already up through the shelf, so those two supply lines need to connect up there to that line right there, as well as over there. These two hoses that are hanging down, they're for the spigot. So I need to put a T right here that came with the fittings themselves. I put a T in here, and both of these will connect to that T. So I'll show you guys that in just a second. But this is incredibly tight in this cabinet. I had to make it pretty small to fit the space that I have here, and these sinks hang down way into the cabinet too, so it's going to be hard to get in there and work. So I probably won't be able to show you guys what I'm doing while I'm working, but I'll show you what it looks like when I'm done. Alright, so right here I have these two 16-inch hoses to connect to the spigot for the sink. Now one will be for the hot, one for the cold, and I have two more for the other sink as well. So what you need to do in here, you can see those valves in the back corner. I'm going to be taking the nut off of the top of this. You don't need this one on here for this hose, so I'll take that off, as well as this little brass bushing. Do that for both the hot and the cold. Take those off, and you won't need those. Alright, so for these fittings, they have a rubber gasket in here. So what you want to do is just tighten this down on the threads. You don't want to add Teflon tape in here. It might get bunched up and not allow it to set all the way down on that rubber O-ring in there. So I'm just going to tighten this down, hand tight, and then I'll get my adjustables and tighten it a little further. Alright, now I need to hook these up to the faucets on top. Now here's the T I was mentioning before, where the hot and cold will both lead into this line right here going up through the spigot. I need to tighten those down, and then I can attach it to that fitting up top. Now again, sorry I can't show you as I'm working, but I'll show you right after once I get this all hooked up. what this looks like and how this makes sense. Now I have everything hooked up. The T right there is connected to the valves on either side. I actually have a 20-inch long extension on this hose for both valves on either side connecting to the center faucet, and that's because the hoses that came with the faucet would just kink. They were really cheap and would kink and shut off the water pressure. So I had to get a little bit longer one so it wasn't as sharp of a turn trying to get in there. Now that the supply lines are all hooked up, it's all ready to go, I need to hook up the drain so that the sink will be functional. So I bought a kit that has all the pieces I need to install a trap and hook up the drain. Now the pipe that hooks up to the drain and leads into the trap is way too long for the space that I've got, so I'm going to quickly take a pipe cutter and cut that off to the length that I need so I can keep installing the trap. Now I need to drill one quick hole in the back of the shelf that will lead down to the drain at the bottom of the cabinet. Now the reason why my trap is on top of the shelf and going all the way to the back and then straight down to the sewer line is because I want to take up as little amount of space as possible. If I go straight down through the shelf, then have the trap down where I could work a lot easier, have more space, it would take up a lot of the storage space that we're going to have in the cabinet. So I'm going to run all the way to the back of the cabinet, have the trap on the top shelf where it cuts down on a lot less space than down below, and have it all the way out of the way. So now we have plenty of room for storage and it doesn't cause any issues. Now I've got the trap, the sewer lines, everything hooked up. Gonna test the water pressure, make sure there's no leaks, and then I'll run the water as well and make sure that the drain holds water and doesn't drip at all. Now everything looks good. I'm gonna quickly go to the other side and install that one. So I've got this side finished as well. I just finished up hooking up the sewer lines going down through, and so the water lines are all hooked up as well. So I have the supply coming in. This is the cold, hot. They go into the valve. The valve, when it turns on, it supplies this hose that when they came from the manufacturer, they were too short. You would either have to space it out perfectly this far away from the spigot, or if you tried to bend it at all, this kinked and would shut off the water. So I had to replace these with some 20-inch ones. The store didn't have 16 or 14-inch. That's really what I needed. So instead I got the 20-inch, and that basically, it's hard to see with the tags here, but they loop back around. This one's coming from the cold side and it loops around and hooks up to the spigot here. Right there. So that way it keeps it from kinking. I was having an issue with it kinking the hose and shutting off the supply. So that fixed that issue. Everything's hooked up and sealed. I need to turn on the pressure and test that. Hey babe, can you shut that off? All right, there's the cold. And there's the hot. I'm not seeing any leaks. We should be good. As well as nothing's coming out the sewer line. Now all I need to do is clean this up. I'll put the doors back on the vanity so this can all be finished off, and this project should be finished. Alright guys, that finishes up the video for today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys found this helpful. If you did, let me know in the comment section down below, or show me by hitting that thumbs up button on this video. Now if you're interested in seeing how to build the vanity or the butcher block countertop that we have, go to the end of this video and I'll leave the links there. Thanks guys for watching. As always, I'll see you in the next one.